Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 247, written by fromagadirtokungur. The sands of time fall slower in Moscow. I am a French language teacher in Russia, an expat, and due to that, I should travel at least once a year to Moscow for documents. Embassy bureaucracy, what can you do? And because I live in a city that's 2,000 kilometers far from Moscow, I use the planes each and every time. Well now, let's jump to the fun part. The time zone in Moscow is a 2-hour difference. I flew to Moscow with my wife and landed safely. I went to the embassy at 9 a.m. and did my things, and by 10 a.m. I was already finished. Now we have the whole day to visit Moscow before our flight back, which will be at 11 p.m. First we visited Lenin Library, Undergrounds, Kremlin Gardens, the Cathedral, the Red Square, by foot. And when I looked at the time, I was shocked. It's 11 a.m., which means this whole excursion took 1 hour. And I was so sure it took more because for those who don't know, Moscow is a gigantic city, and we moved between places by foot. No taxi, no bus, just by foot. I thought that maybe it's just because of the time zone difference, and I felt a little tired after the flight. But no, my watch and phone were automatically updated when we got to Moscow. So we decided to find a place to eat, and we were looking around here and there. Then we found a good spot. We settled down and had lunch, took a tour around the mall and commercial centers, bought souvenirs, took coffee and just a few cigarettes. Then I took a look at my phone. What the hell? It's 11:30 a.m., just 30 minutes gone by? My wife noticed it too, and we felt a little weird. We're already tired walking around places, and time is literally not moving or moving slowly. I suggested to sit at an open-air cafe and just waste some time until 7 p.m. to go back to the airport. We sat down and took my 5th or 6th coffee that day. I talked to my wife about anything and everything. Time goes and felt that we minimum sat there for 2 hours. But no, it was only 12. Another 30 minutes. I practically lost it. And to not make the text long and boring, we kept moving between cafes and museums on this infinite day. And finally, when 7 p.m. hit, I said, for God's sake, finally. It really felt like forever, and when I checked my phone's step counter, it was 400% more than my expected number. We walked around 15 kilometers around the city center, and then I understood that something was unusual about that trip, because when I got back to my city, the time was running like usual. I could feel how the time was going faster than in Moscow. What do you think? Case file number 248. Written by MckayofSpades. Let's play extra-dimensional portal ball. I've never had any kind of paranormal or UFO experience, that I know of, but I have experienced one extremely jarring glitch in the Matrix. I was in my apartment and bouncing a blue racquetball off the floor super hard, so that it would bounce up to the ceiling and back down to the floor. I was just playing a silly game where I was trying to get it to bounce back and forth as many times as possible. The ceiling was a flat, white painted ceiling with literally no fixtures of any kind on it. On one of the bounces, the ball hit the floor, bounced up to the ceiling, and sank right into it, disappearing. Right before my very eyes. I was seriously shocked. I thought that maybe I'd blacked out for a second or something. But I looked around immediately on the floor and didn't see the ball anywhere, which should have been easy, because it still had a ton of kinetic force in it and should have been still bouncing or rolling. I tore the area apart looking, but I couldn't find the ball. Then, about 30 minutes later, my wife got home, and when she opened the door to our apartment, I saw the ball fall out of the ceiling behind her in the hallway. I immediately ran out there, and yep, there it was, just bouncing and rolling down the hall like it had fallen out of the ceiling about 20 yards away from where I saw it disappear. I remember this extremely vividly, both the sensory visual experience of seeing it disappear into the ceiling and the emotional shock I was experiencing in that moment, as well as when it reappeared out in the hall. It's what got me to start seriously considering simulation theory, and now I'm fairly convinced that we're living in one. Case notes, file number 248. Well, this is my jam, Mr. MckayofSpades. 2 balls lost in my life, although none came back. I'm not going crazy, nor are you, I think. What the hell is right? Why balls, too? It seems like the most common object to disappear are balls and socks. Your account, though, is very unique in the ball somehow merging with other matter, almost like it phased through the ceiling, then it bounced around in the interiors of the ceiling towards the door entrance. When your wife came home, it sort of phased back through the ceiling and then fell down. I wonder if this is a glimpse behind the scenes for disappearing object phenomena, a matter phasing glitch? Case file number 249, written by MckayofSpades. Husband out of place at night. Every night I go to bed about 2 hours before my husband. I always wake up when he comes into the room. One night he was gaming with a friend, and it was hours later. I heard him sneak into the room and crawl across the floor so he could pop up and scare me. I felt the floor kind of shake and felt him bump clumsily against the side of the bed in the dark. I held out my hand and asked him not to scare me. I was already scared enough and begged him to just take my hand and come to bed. I couldn't see anything in the room, but knew he was there and just waited for him to jump up so I could move on and go back to sleep. That's when I heard him talking to his friend in the other room. I was frozen. I know there's sleep paralysis or lucid dreaming or something that explains this, but I would have sworn on my son's life that someone had crawled across the floor and jostled the bed. Eventually I worked out the fear enough to grab my phone and text my husband to come in and turn on the lights and check under the bed. But holy crap, it boggles me how real it felt. If you're enjoying this video, consider giving it a like. Now on to the next story. Bonus file, written by DrBeehn. According to my sleepwalking girlfriend, there are men moving under the bed. This is a continuation from the first part. While the last couple of days were pretty silent, last night was terrible. I had that unsettling feeling for most of the night before we went to bed, so I knew something was going to happen. When we were in bed, before we went to sleep, my girlfriend joked around that she was possessed by a demon and kept making this really creepy grin, like the one where you're smiling ear to ear, but your eyes are wide open. I could tell she was joking, but still a little creepy. After that, she told me the ghost in her dreams said I was cheating on her. I definitely am not. We've been dating for 3 years and I would never do that to her, so apparently this ghost is a homewrecker. While that's not necessarily creepy, just annoying that a ghost is trying to break us up, things picked up when she went to sleep. It started with this loud booming sound, sort of like a big truck driving by your window with the rhythmic beat of the engine. At first, that's what I thought it was. The window in our bedroom is right over the street, where it's not rare for a big truck to drive by, but this booming never stopped. There wasn't a single point where this noise was coming from. No matter where I looked, the volume of the boom never changed. Throughout the entire night, it never stopped, never got louder, never changed rhythm, just kept beating and beating and beating. Normally, I would easily be able to write this off and just fall asleep, but about 30 minutes after my girlfriend fell asleep, she started talking again. At first, she looked like she was having a pleasant conversation. She held out her hand for what looked like a handshake and started giggling. After that, I could hear her bring up my name in the incoherence of her sleep, so I thought, maybe she's talking to me in her dream. Nope. After a little more of the conversation went on, she looked at me with her eyes open and said, "We're talking about you," and started giggling and then passed right back out. This creeped me out a lot, reminding me of the first night at the lake house. After such a spook, there was only one thing I could do: fall deep into a YouTube rabbit hole. I put my AirPods in. I could still hear the booming, but a little more muffled now, and pulled up a video. About another half hour goes by and my girlfriend is talking again. This conversation seems a little more serious as she's not giggling and her tone changed. After about a minute of talking, she sits up in bed and does just about the worst thing I could imagine. She crawls over to my side of the bed, crouches down on the floor, points under the bed, looks directly in my eyes and says, "There's men moving around under there." She just got back into bed and fell asleep like nothing happened. About an inch away from needing to change my pajama pants, I shake her awake and say, "What did you mean by that?" She looked really confused and said she had no clue what I was talking about. I said, "Please tell me you're joking. You don't remember a thing? You just pointed under the bed and said there are men moving under there." She immediately looks terrified and says, I have no clue what you're talking about. Quit scaring me. It took a bit longer for her to fall asleep after that, and I turned my phone flashlight on for the remainder of the night. Not much happened after that. There was another point where she held her hand out for a handshake and mumbled something, but no conversation that time. She left at about 7:30 a.m. this morning, but after saying goodbye, I immediately got back in bed and passed out. When I woke up again around 10:30, I felt this completely overwhelming sadness that had me on the verge of tears. Even in that moment when you first wake up and you can't remember a single thing about your day, I still felt that sadness. Of course, I love and miss my girlfriend with all of my heart, but she was only going to be gone for a couple of days, and even when we would take separate trips, neither of us would get this world-ending feeling. It genuinely felt like the world had gone gray, and the only thing I could do was cry. Luckily, I was able to push through this feeling and take my dog out to potty. Not even 30 seconds of being outside, and the feeling was completely gone. Again, I miss my girlfriend a lot and still feel that, but not to the point of mental breakdown. It seems like activity is picking up again, and the men moving under the bed definitely seem to miss my girlfriend too, seeing as they're already trying to break us up, and now I'm alone in the apartment with them, and I'm pretty terrified. I might go get some sage to smudge the apartment later today.